I'm Megan Skidmore, and welcome to the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. I'm a woman, daughter, sister, spouse, mother, life coach, and person of faith on a mission to normalize asking questions and allowing doubts on a faith journey and all aspects of life. Join me as I bring this traditionally taboo topic out of the shadows of shame and into the light. I firmly believe we normalize through more talking and engaging in discussion. More talking peels back, exposes, and erases the layers of shame associated with asking questions and allowing doubts. When we are more authentic about our journey, we are more powerful because shame has no power in the face of authenticity. Do you know what your core values are? If you come from a high-demand background where choices may have been made for you, it's possible you haven't taken the opportunity to thoughtfully consider your core personal values. Brené Brown said, living into our values means that we do more than profess our values. We practice them. We walk our talk. We are clear about what we believe and hold important, and we take care that our intentions, words, thoughts, and behaviors align with those beliefs, end quote. But before you can walk your talk, you must identify what your core values are. Research has shown that it is traumatizing when a therapist or mental health support person tries to impose their values upon their client. As a life transitions coach, I do not tell my clients what their values are or what they should be. Identifying your core values is like thinking ahead of time. It reduces decision fatigue. It becomes your North Star, guiding you as you navigate new decisions or decisions you've come to realize that perhaps you didn't get to choose in the first place. Click the link in the show notes for my Determine Your Values free guide. It will help you take the first steps to living a values-driven and aligned life by helping you identify what matters most to you. First Friday's free coaching, a confidential group to bring all the questions, vent frustrations, share fears, express doubts. Navigating a new and uncertain reality is hard enough. Let's remove the worry of judgment from others. In this group, I will help you help yourself so that you can be there for your child, family, loved ones, and for you too. Click the link in the show notes to sign up. You must complete the agreement. Hey everyone, welcome to the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast. I am so grateful that you took time out of your schedule today to join me and my guest. I have Ben Schilaty here with me today. I said it right?
You did. Schilaty is perfect.
Okay. You may know Ben. This is not his first rodeo being interviewed on a podcast. You've been on many, many podcasts, but I am grateful that you took time out of your busy schedule and you're here with us today. So welcome.
Of course. No, I'm honored to be here. And I just love attention. So being on a podcast is always fun for me.
That is true, Ben. You do love attention. I think your dad does too. I got to interview your dad last fall and wow, I noticed similarities like father, like son.
People meet my dad and they're like, oh, I understand you now.
In a good way, in a loving and fun way, a good way. Well, let's just jump right in. I always like to give my guest as much time as possible to share whatever's on their heart. To get us started though, Ben, can you share with our listeners just your origin story about you, your upbringing, your family, where you grew up? Maybe we most know your faith of origin, but I know my podcast reaches persons of all faith backgrounds. And so that's something I like to include. Your education, your interest, whatever you feel is pertinent for us to know about you. I mean, it's all pertinent because you like attention. So, but if you can narrow it down to your first 50 things, we'll go with that.
Perfect. I will condense 40 years of life into just 30 seconds. So I'll be brief. I was raised in the Seattle area. I'm the youngest of 4 kids, and I definitely have youngest child syndrome. You know, hence the loving attention joke that is a tongue-in-cheek joke because it's true. And my parents raised our family in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So I'm still an active Latter-day Saint. When I was 19, I spent 2 years in Mexico as a missionary, and I learned Spanish there, which led to a 10-year career as a Spanish teacher. And I taught Spanish at the middle school, high school, college levels. And that also led to my first 3 degrees, which were in Latin American studies, Spanish linguistics, and second language acquisition and teaching. That's my PhD. And then after that, I went back to school and got a master's in social work. So now I work full-time as a therapist. I came out publicly as gay when I was 30. so about 10 years ago. And before that, I'd come out to close friends and family starting about the time when I was 23. And that really was such a good thing. My experience being a gay member of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints has really shaped my life in a lot of ways and continues to. So right now I work as a therapist. I work primarily with LGBTQ clients and their families here in Utah. And starting in August, I'll be working full time at Utah Valley University, just down the road. So I'll be a professor of social work, doing that full time, and I'll still do some therapy on the side. So, and that's just a little bit about me. I also love all things Disney, both music, movies, and theme parks. And I love cacti a lot. And my favorite food is the Cinnabon. So I love Cinnabon.
The Cinnabon, not just any cinnamon roll, the
Okay,
Cinnabon.
well, here's the thing. Cinnamon rolls are delicious.
Okay.
I love them. But some cinnamon rolls are too dry. The best part about Cinnabon is like how ooey and gooey it is. I love a good gooey Cinnabon.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay, you weren't kidding about the 30 seconds. That was fast. So some who are listening may know some things. We may repeat if they've heard you and others, but I'm just going to pretend like those who are listening, they're just getting to know Ben the first time. So you were raised in the LDS faith, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
You are openly gay member and
Yep.
active. You served a mission. That's what the 2 years in Mexico, served an LDS mission. And you came out 10 years ago. Sometimes I forget that, Ben. It
Yeah.
seems like not
Does,
as, I don't know.
does that seem long or short to you?
I think I thought it was longer ago, but COVID has just really messed up my sense of time. Like things that happened in 2020 feel like a decade ago.
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting thing that
But for
happens.
you, I don't know.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. There's an interesting thing that happens in this like LGBTQ Latter-day Saint space where people like often get really active in it for a few years and then they move on and do something else. And so since I've been actively doing this stuff for 10 years, I've been around longer than most, it feels like. So I haven't gotten burned out yet. I still love it.
Good. And I don't know if I'd consider myself relatively newish. I've been in this space for 5 years now, but more actively, probably more like three, like in a more public way, I guess. So yeah, 10 years, and bless you for that. So one of the things that I have set out to do with this podcast, Ben, is I want to normalize
Mhm.
that all faith journeys are unique and that having questions and allowing doubts is part of that journey. It's a healthy part of that journey. And it doesn't mean that anything has gone wrong. It just means that you're human on this earth having an experience. And so while you are sharing what yours has been up to this point in your life, someone else who may have similar, I don't know, we'll just call it background demographics or experiences or whatever, could be in a very different place at this point, and that's okay too, right? One thing I have learned with my guests is sometimes we go back a ways to really pivotal moments where you just arrive at this point where you're kind of face to face and there is no way around or over or under. You've got to go through whatever is right there in front of you. I do interview a lot of parents of queer kiddos and individuals who identify as queer. So a lot of times it's that. Not always. Sometimes it can be a lot of different things. So I won't fill in the blanks. It's a lot of different things. But I'm curious to know, like, when you think about your faith journey growing up and kind of what you were experiencing, what you thought yours would be, and then now you're here and you have, hindsight is 2020. When do you remember kind of really feeling, oh my gosh, I don't know if that's how I don't know about that thing or that concept or that we could say doctrine or policy or whatever, because all conservative faiths have various tenets, various doctrines, policies, whatever. And those who are raised and grow up in these faiths, they all come to this point. Can you share with us a little bit about when you remember an experience along those lines and kind of what that was like for you and what you did?
Yeah. So, I was a teen in the 90s and early 2000s. And back then, like even in society at large, it wasn't considered acceptable to be gay. Like I remember when Ellen came out on her
Mhm.
sitcom and it
Yes.
got canceled. So it was just like I just grew up in a very different world than the world that the kiddos have these like today. Um,
Yeah.
and so in my mind, it like being gay was not acceptable. It was not okay. And my attraction to men when I was a teenager was just a phase that would go away. And I really thought that, by serving a mission, giving 2 years of my life to God, that he would like bless me with what I would have called healing. And so when I came home from my mission and that hadn't happened, that's when I started to like actually think about things. Because before I was able to just live in a state of denial. And so at first I started out in this place of like, okay, I did something wrong that made me gay, so then I can fix it. And then I like went through my life like I can't really think of what I did to like make this happen. So then I was like, okay, well, still this can be fixed. If I'm just like good enough, if I'm faithful enough, if I like put enough good deeds into a heavenly bank, then God will fix me. And I'd been home from my mission for 2 years, and that still hadn't happened. And I thought I am doing all the best things I could. Like I am trying my darndest to be perfect, and nothing is changing. And so then I started to wonder, like, well, why is this happening? Like, I couldn't live in denial anymore. I was like, well, what's the purpose of this? Like, God's giving me this trial. What is the purpose of this trial? What is He asking me to sacrifice? What is He asking me to give up? And it got to a point where I couldn't do it on my own anymore. I was just struggling so much. I just couldn't keep in the secret anymore. And I came out to two of my best friends while we were on a walk when I was 23. And that's a moment that I've now told thousands of people about. I wrote about it in my book. I'm talking about it now. And that evening when we went on that walk, none of us had any idea that was going to happen. Like we didn't know that a moment was about to happen that was going to change my life. That'd be so pivotal and influential that I would tell thousands of people about it. But they were prepared for it because they loved me. And so the big shift that I had that night was I can tell people what's going on in my life and they still love me and care about me. And that wasn't something I knew could happen. And that was a big shift. I really thought if people knew about this, they would reject me. They would not want me around. So that was the first big shift. The second big shift that I had was when I was 29, and I fell in love with my best friend, who was also a gay member of the church. And I thought I was going to have, a quote unquote normal life. In the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, marriage between a man and a woman is a core tenet. It is, taught as one of the whole reasons we even come to earth. And so it's such a big emphasis in church teachings. And so I thought, well, of course I'm going to do that thing, like that, I'm going to marry a woman. That's what life is all about. And it became clear that wasn't going to happen. And, I'd had a few girlfriends and it was always awkward, even though I, loved them and they were wonderful people. And then I fell in love with this best friend of mine who was also a gay member of the church, and things felt so different. I was like this is what all those songs were about. This is why people kiss each other at the airport. I was like, suddenly like love and romance made sense, but before it hadn't made any sense to me. And
Mhm.
then I started to wonder, well, is this wrong? Like what is being in this relationship with this man wrong? What all the things that I was taught about same-sex relationships, are they wrong? And so I had to go
Yeah.
through this big process of just kind of like pulling apart all the things I thought about relationships and marriage, and then like holding them in front of me and looking at them. And I remember a moment where like I had told one of the girls I dated that I loved her, and I was with this boy, and I told him that I loved him, and I just like remember feeling that so intensely and like feeling that was good and not a bad thing or something to run
That
away from. And,
that all of these feelings that you were having for this friend, that they were okay.
yeah, and that
Yeah,
was such a big shift. And um,
totally.
I remember after we kissed and the first time, and I remember thinking, I know what it feels like to do something wrong. Like I know what it feels like to sin. I know how I feel when I lie or when I'm rude or when I'm unkind. Like I know what that feels like. And that didn't feel wrong to me. And that was a new reality I had to reckon with as well. Like, well, if I was told this was wrong, but it doesn't feel wrong, and I know what sinning feels like, well, then what do I do with that? And that was a really big pivotal moment for me that happened 10 years ago.
So if I can just pause you right there for a minute, I want to hear everything else you have to say, but Ben, that is so huge. I just want that to settle in for our listeners. Like you said, I know what it feels like to do something wrong. When you have, we could say, trespassed against your own morals, your own code of who you want to be, how Ben Schilaty wants to show up, right? And in accordance with your relationship with the divine. You know what that feels like. You know that feeling of discomfort, feeling bad or sad, or however that feels like to you, remorseful maybe. And yet when you kissed Jordan, right?
Yep.
I don't know if you said his name
I
yet,
didn't
but
say his name. His name is
I
Jordan.
read your book.
Very well known. Yeah.
I read your book, which I'm going to leave a link in the show notes for. Um, you didn't feel that.
Mhm.
I think this is something that's so important for folks who identify, and they don't even realize it because they don't have to admit this to themselves or anybody. For folks who are attracted in, I guess, for lack of a better term, what society considers a more traditional way, which is male and female, what we know and understand to be male and female, although my perception of gender has definitely evolved. They don't even have to think about that because that's just how it's not seen as I hate even saying this word, but deviant or bad or wrong or like something is terribly off with them for feeling romantic, love, feelings, and maybe even of a sexual nature for somebody who is their opposite sex. Ever, they don't feel that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like if someone had told me when I was 25, like, Ben, kiss a man, it's not a sin, that wouldn't have been helpful to me. This was something that I needed to experience on my
Would you
own.
have thought they were crazy?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just want to give space for people to like be on their own journey in their own time. It was the right time for me to come out publicly when I was 30. And
Hmm.
so I wouldn't want to rush anyone to do anything that they're not ready for. And yet,
Yeah.
and so I just trust that people have their own timelines and their own learning and growing experiences as well.
I think that's really important to mention. This episode will air, or excuse me, publish during June. And sometimes people feel this pressure during June. When I say people, I mean those individuals who identify as queer in some way, LGBTQIA plus. And what you just said is really important. It's your timeline and nobody else's. It's important to know your level of safety, create your safety, however you need to do that. And you get to choose
Hmm. Yep.
when and with whom you share this very personal part of yourself.
Hmm. Yep. Precisely.
Okay, so you've mentioned your mission, and that didn't, I'm saying this tongue in cheek, that didn't cure you.
Yeah.
And 2 years after your mission, even, you're like, okay, this is definitely still here. Fast forward, you came out at 23, then you met this friend who became more than a friend.
Mhm.
And weren't you around 28, 29-ish?
That's when I was 29 and 30. Hmm.
Okay, 29, 30. And you were, and somewhere in all of this is where you started to shift in your understanding and perception of being gay,
Hmm.
identifying in a different way than a lot of people. And for sure, identifying differently than what was perceived as okay or acceptable.
Hmm.
And frankly, like not bad. Anyway, so then what was next? Because you have continued to evolve, obviously. That's one thing about our faith journeys. There's no point of arrival, right? It's just ongoing. I
Yeah.
like to give myself permission. You know what? I'm learning this today. I feel this today. Tomorrow, I might learn something new and I might feel a little bit differently or understand things a little bit differently. I don't like to back myself in a corner.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the next thing that happened was so I was trying to like move forward, like in my faith tradition in the church, and Jordan was trying to leave and he's trying to take me with him on his way out. And the tension, like we just didn't have the same goals, even though we both really loved each other. And so we split up, not because we weren't compatible or because we didn't love each other, but because I wanted to stay in my faith and he was ready to not be in the faith anymore.
Mhm.
And that was really painful. And so I so we ended things. And about 2 months later, I told him I'd changed my mind, that I was going to pick him over the church. And he very kindly told me that he knew that I would choose the church over him again in the future and that we couldn't be in a relationship. And so I was devastated, like absolutely devastated. And at the time, I was doing my PhD program in Arizona, and my job had just ended as well. And I wasn't enjoying my PhD program. And so here I was, I'd broken up with this boy I loved. I didn't like this career path I'd chosen, and I had no job. I just felt like everything in my life had fallen apart. Like everything, like I was in the depths of despair. And I thought, this church is stupid. It just took away from me the thing I love the most.
Thank you for just being honest. I know you don't really think that, but at the time you had a lot of
Yeah,
pain. You were
yeah,
in a
yeah.
lot of pain.
Yeah, I was like, I lost the person I love because of this church. And I was very upset. And so I just wanted it to not be true. And I went to a bunch of anti-Mormon websites and I think some people use the term anti-Mormon a little loosely. I would say these were like definitely like anti-Mormon, like meant to like tear the church down. And I was
Yeah.
like, great, this is all made up. This is just not true. It was easy peasy. And then I
Mhm.
thought, you know what? I should maybe like check in a little bit first and like read some of the like
Yeah.
scriptures that came through Joseph Smith and I read some and I was like, darn it, this like really resonates with me and I like feel this is true. And so, I spent a lot of time praying and reading and pondering, and I just felt so sure, like this very unexpected feeling of, Ben, you were being called to move forward within this church and to live your life within the teachings of the church. And that was not what I wanted, but that's where my studying and praying and pondering and really asking for divine guidance led me. And that led to a huge shift in me of this is where I feel called to be. This is what I
Mhm.
believe. These are the truths I hold on to. And I started being able to say, there are a few things I know, like things that feel like absolute truth to me, and
Yeah.
there are a lot of things that I believe. And I'm going to hold on to those things that I know, and I'm going to move forward the best I can with those things that I believe. Because before, I was a very rigid believer, like either it's all true or it's not true. And this gave me the space of, okay, this is what I do, this is what I do know, and these are
Yeah.
things that I believe. And the believe list was a lot longer than the no list.
Do you
But
ever feel comfortable saying there are things I don't know, like I used to think I did?
oh, totally.
Yeah.
And I think that's just part of learning and growing.
Yeah.
Because living in a world where there is certainty is so comfortable. Like that
Yep.
is like right from wrong, all the answers. Like that is a comfortable world. But then to say, I don't know what the next life is going to look like, that can feel
Hmm.
scary. But also I've been alive long enough to know just like to trust and have hope and faith and not
Yeah.
know what the outcome is going to be, but to know that God will guide me along.
So you went through a huge wrestle when you went back to Jordan and he said, "No, I know you'll eventually go back." And it seemed like things were falling apart. And so you went and did some of your own research and then like you shared, eventually came to the conclusion you needed to stay. But compare and contrast that to you kind of went through this little 2 month period really quickly when you had told Jordan the first time, no, I need to stay and I honor your path or whatever. But you said 2 months later, you went back and you
Yeah.
said, okay, I want to be with you. What was that 2 months like? Like, that's huge, Ben.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, it probably would have been shorter than 2 months had I not been in Peru. So I had a summer
Oh,
job. I had a summer job in Peru, and Jordan and I ended things like 2 nights after I got to Peru, like
okay.
over Skype.
Okay.
And so I I love the country of Peru, but I don't think about it fondly because it was the worst. It was the worst 2 months of my life.
Worst time of your life.
Yeah, because I was devastated. I was managing. I was working for a nonprofit. I was managing a group of volunteers. None of them knew I was gay. I couldn't talk to them about what was going on. It was just like this like I was dying on the inside and couldn't tell anyone about it. And it was just so painful. And also, we lived in a small apartment. There were like 12 of us in the small apartment, so I didn't have any privacy, so I couldn't call someone to talk to them either.
Yeah.
So it was just really
Probably
awful.
had limited Wi-Fi too.
Yeah. And like I didn't have a cell phone to call home.
Yeah.
It was just I've lived away from my parents most of my adult life. This was the one time in my life I was homesick. Like I just like needed my parents.
That
And
makes that makes my heart just I just poor Ben
yeah,
in
and,
Peru.
and honestly, it was awful. And I remember one weekend, a few of the volunteers and I like went to this place called it's known as the Switzerland of Peru, and we
Okay.
like this beautiful picturesque place. We're like hiking through the mountains and eating delicious foods and taking these like the most amazing pictures. And one of the volunteers said, "We are living people's dreams right now. Like we're having such an adventure." And I just like felt empty on the inside. Like we're doing this like I'm on this adventure and it's just like I just want to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually ended up leaving a month and a half early. I was supposed to be there the whole summer. I left
Okay.
in early July because I was falling apart.
You were
And
done.
the truth is I got fired because I'm like such a duty bound person. Like my bosses could tell I was depressed. I was like, no, I agreed to come. I'm going to push through. And they said, well, if you need to go home, you can. I said, no, I'm going to push through. And then they finally said, we're firing you. You're going home.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You were in the depths. That's tough.
Yeah,
That
it
is
was
tough.
it was really awful. And then when I got back to the US and saw Jordan, and then when he said, like, I was still in the depths of despair, and then when he said, hey, we're not getting back together, it wasn't like I felt better. I felt even worse somehow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like I drove to my parents' house after that, and my parents live 13 hours from Jordan's house, and my goodness, what a terrible 13 hours in the car by myself. Just
Yeah.
I just like felt so empty. And
So
it's
was it that time period in Peru that it was, I know you were sad because you were going through that, and maybe your faith was further way in the back of your mind at that point. I mean, was it just your heavy heart missing him and realizing how much you cared and felt toward him, you think
Yeah, I mean,
that
it was of course like heartbreak, and I remember thinking, oh, like this is why they call it heartbreak. Like it actually hurts on the inside because I'd been
uh-huh,
dumped by a few women before, and I was always sad, but it wasn't like heartbreak. So like, oh, this is why they call it heartbreak. So it was
uh-huh.
that like missing him and the loneliness, but also like this existential dread of like what is
Wow.
life supposed to be? Like I'm
Wow.
gonna be alive for a lot longer. Like what is even the purpose of life? Like why am I here on this earth? How can I ever be happy? And it's honestly like so weird to like look back on that time because my like I feel so differently now. Like I am not in that place even a little
Yeah.
bit,
Yeah.
but it was a real place of just like feeling like dread. Like I would wake up in the morning and just feel dread. Like I was like I don't want to go through today. I would just rather today didn't exist.
I appreciate your honesty and candidly sharing this part of your journey with us because thank goodness you are in a different place. But I know that there are listeners or maybe who identify or are questioning or maybe thinking about it, or maybe parents of kids, right? And this is just, it's so helpful to try to understand what's going on. Like you saying existential dread. Oh my gosh, I felt that. That's
Mhm.
heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was tough.
Questioning your meaning of life.
And the hard thing is like that to me it was like the church was the problem. Like it was the thing that was making me sad. But then like if I throw that away, then like is God real? It's like getting rid of this thing
Hmm.
that's causing me pain, like that wouldn't then like solve the problem. It like would create a new set of problems. And so I was wrestling with heartbreak,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what the meaning of life was, what my faith was. And, I mentioned, things I know and things I believe. The one thing I like never really doubted, even though like I would ask myself this question was I never doubted the reality of God. Like I just,
Hmm.
I feel like I connect with God easily. I can feel God's presence pretty readily and feel God's love. And so that was something that I never questioned. I was like, God is there. There's some point to this, but what the heck is going on? And those moments of just crying out in prayer, like, God, where are you? Like, if you care about me, like, why aren't you fixing this? Like, this is something that's fixable. Why is life just going to be filled with so much sadness all the time?
And what did you feel was your answer from God? Or maybe you're still waiting. Story mapping is a key component of my signature program, Life Outside the Binary. When you experience an awakening and see for yourself that the world is not all black and white, you get to choose which of your long held stories align and live outside the ones that don't. Have you hit a wall and simply cannot figure out what to do to move past, or feel stuck and unsure of what your next move is or how to find it? Did you know the real challenge isn't the wall or the feeling stuck, but rather the story you have written and are living in about yourself and about the wall and about the feeling of stuckness? What you tell yourself about your value, character, abilities, and power to work through and move past problems, concerns, walls, or feeling stuck could be what is really in the way. The thing is, most of us can't see these stories for ourselves. That's where I come in. I invite you to join me for a story mapping session. You will gain more than insight, clarity, and at least one tool you can start using today. You'll remember or learn for the first time how to breathe again. You will start to feel a glimmer of hope and sense possibilities. You'll start to see where your stories end and you begin. Nothing is off limits in our 75-minute intensive. The link is in the show notes. Use promo code PRIDE2024, that's PRIDE 2024, no spaces, for a special story mapping offer just for the month of June.
You, you know, I remember, so I got fired, like I said, and there
Yeah.
was another person there who was like managing the group of volunteers, and she was Peruvian, and we always talked in Spanish, and I let her know what was going on so that I would at least have someone to talk to, and she was so kind and so wonderful about it.
Mhm.
So when I got fired, and I had to leave, which was honestly the best thing that could have happened that summer. There was a song we would always sing, a Julieta Venegas song, and your listeners probably won't know it. But it's called like I'm leaving, like I don't want to go, but I'm on my way out. And it's like this fun song. And so
Okay.
on my day, I was thinking like we'd like just started singing this song because we'd always sung it, but like now I was actually leaving. And I remember like crying and hugging her. And like we always talked in Spanish, but I remember telling her, like as I was leaving, I said in English, I said, I love you. Thank you so much. I needed you because I just needed to like because I'm very good at Spanish, but like my native language is English. And I want to like say the words that like
Yeah.
meant came from me. And I just like felt like her presence there wasn't a mistake. And that God made sure I was with someone that would be there for me during this really tough time. And so a lot of the answer has been as I'm like, where are you? It has been, oh, I'm here in your friends, in your parents, in your coworkers, in your siblings. And I've seen God's love through those people all along. And
That
then
is really beautiful.
and then when I got home, I spent some time with my parents after Jordan and I like ended, and I would like pray and like feel God's love and didn't fix things, but I'd feel like okay, I have enough energy to get through today. And I remember just like I had to go back to Arizona to go back to school. I didn't
Mhm.
have a job, and my job before had paid my tuition. So now I didn't have a job and I was going to have to pay tuition. So not only did I have no income, but I had to pay all this money. And on my drive home, I thought, I prayed a bunch. I said, God, I'm in a mess and I trust that you will take care of this. Like I need a job and I'm going to trust that you're going to make this happen. And then I
Mhm.
got back to Arizona and I went to a friend's wedding in one of the temples there. And I remember walking in and saying, God, I'm doing my best. Like I'm living a worthy life. Please fix this. And I walked out of the temple and I had a voicemail from someone at the University of Arizona where I was going to school and with a job offer. And suddenly I had an income and my tuition was paid for. And I was like, and because I just feel like God comes through for me. And not like I wish he had come through like months before so I didn't have to worry about it for so long, but he came through when I needed it. And so
Mhm.
there's this trust that I had then that I have now. Like even when things are hard, I trust that God will come through.
And I think not that I'm dismissing, the difficulty of it, but I mean, I'm sure there was lots of growth you experienced between the time that you needed the job and then you actually found out that you had gotten it. And same thing with the tuition.
Mhm.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. So if we can kind of fast forward a little bit, you talked about growing up in the 90s. Nobody talked about this. It wasn't okay to say you were gay, or it was way less accepted, I guess. You have swung like 180. You are very much, well, you're an advocate, you're advocating for yourself, but also for the LGBTQ plus community at large in many ways. Like you are very active in that space. I have grown up in the LDS church, and I remember a time, Ben, when even that wouldn't uh, wouldn't have been okay or would have been frowned upon. And maybe it still is in some, communities, in some groups. I think that's changing little by little. But tell us a little bit more about that part of your journey. You were getting your advanced degrees, but you also wrote a book. You were keeping a blog before that. And then you eventually were a TEDx speaker. And each one of those, it's almost like you got a little bit more in the public eye
Yeah.
each time. And then eventually you started a podcast with Charlie Bird. So, I mean, yeah, you are out there advocating your little heart out. And so tell us how did that happen and why? And I mean, you're right there.
Yeah, like when I look back on the last 10 years, it's easy to just like see this like easy roadmap of like how it all happened. Like, oh, clearly this is how it happened. And people often ask me like, Ben, how do I give a TEDx talk? Like, how do I start a podcast like you did? And honestly, the answer is like, I don't know. It just kind of happened. It was like I would just be in a place and I would like feel prompted to do something. And so when I was living in Arizona, I felt prompted to like I'd been blogging for a while about my experiences. Just like it was a humor blog. It was like funny. I would just write about
Mhm.
funny things that happened. And I was like, I need to come out on my blog. And that was a really scary thing to do, but it was the right thing. And then like my blog before had like a few hundred readers. My friends would read it. Like that was it. And then suddenly there were thousands of people reading my blog and I was saying things that people hadn't heard before and sharing experiences that were new to people. And I just like got this bug of like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. Like I can educate people and make my community better. And then I thought, I'm all alone in this town. Maybe there are other gay Latter-day Saints here who could also benefit from connection. And so then I started this little support group. And in the 2 years I ran it, it grew to like 3 dozen people in Tucson, Arizona. And it wasn't because I was like, I'm gonna start a movement. I'm gonna start a support group. It was like, maybe there's someone who's lonely. Like I'm lonely. Maybe I could not be lonely with someone else. Like maybe we can be there for each other. And that's how that happened. And then the way my book happened was when you write a blog post, it doesn't matter how good it is. It has a very short shelf life. People read it for a few days and then it falls off the radar. And I thought I want to write something that will be read for a few years at least. And
Okay.
so that's how I ended up writing my book. And then when that was done, I thought so when I submitted my manuscript to the publisher, like just a week later, I was on this panel at BYU at Brigham Young University where I was working at the time, which is the church-owned university, and it was called Reconciling Faith and Sexuality. People could submit questions for the panelists to answer. And I was the only gay person on the panel. The other two people were straight, but like good allies. And so there were all these questions submitted by queer BYU students anonymously, and they were good questions. And we only answered a handful of them. And then after that, I thought we should really discuss these questions. Like, how do we do that? I was like, oh, maybe I could start a podcast where we answer questions for people who are in the closet. And I was like, oh, that's a great podcast title, Questions from the Closet. And that's how it came to be. Then the first like 20 episodes came from
That's
those questions. And then we just kept doing it. But it was
mhm,
just like I never thought, oh, I want to start a podcast or I want to write a book. It's just like like I just kind of noticed these little gaps in the ways I could help and
mhm.
do things that no one else was doing and fill in. And so when people ask me like how do I get to be where you are? Like how do I do what you're going to do? And honestly, it's like just look at the doors that are open in front of you and walk through them. And there's this quote that guides my life, and it's from the Lorax, and it says, "Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not." And so I think, well, what is something that I care about? What is something that I can do to make the world a little better? The truth is that like I haven't changed the world, but I've made some people's lives better, and that really matters. And this happens to me regularly where I'll be like walking across campus or I'll be at the grocery store and someone will say, "Are you Ben Schilaty?" And I'll say, "I am." And they're like, "I read your book, it saved my family." Or I listened to your podcast and it helped me not hate myself. And that's not, that's not world change. Like I didn't change the country, but I did change some lives and that matters. And I just realized I don't want anyone to have to be so alone like I was. And I want to provide resources so that people don't have to go through the same hard times I did alone. And the truth is like I benefit so much from the people who came for me. Like I'm able to be an openly gay, active Latter-day Saint right now because
Yeah.
other people came before me and laid the pavers for me to have this life. And I want to just make sure that I'm paying it forward and leaving pavers for the people who are coming after me so that they can walk a path a little easier that I had to sometimes tread alone.
And thank you for doing that. You have blessed many lives. Maybe one last point about your journey I would like to touch on, if you're okay with that. Last year, sometime, I honestly cannot remember exactly when, but you made a very purposeful decision. And that was to, I think you used the word date,
Mhm.
introduce that into your life, into your personal, social, I think we could even say spiritual, mental journey. Can you just share a little bit about that and what
Yeah.
brought that up?
Yeah,
Hmm.
so I've been working at Brigham Young University, and one of the rules for students and employees is that is no same-sex dating is allowed. So that was off the table for me. And even before I worked at BYU, when I was living in Arizona, those rules didn't apply to me, and I was out in public, and I just didn't feel like it was the right thing for me. I felt like, no, I'm meant to be single, and there are things that I can do as a single person that I couldn't do as a partnered person, and this was the right thing for me to do. And then in October of last year, it was October, I decided that maybe it was time to start dating. I've learned and grown in so many ways, and I just felt prompted this was the next way that I was going to learn and grow. And for me, this isn't about like finding a boyfriend. Like that's not what this is about. I just felt like there were things I was going to learn and people that would come into my life only through this way, and I needed to do that so that I could have those growth experiences and meet those people. Now, that was back in October. It's May now, and I'm still very single. Like I'm super duper single. But I have learned a ton. Like I have learned an absolute ton just in the last 8 months.
I love that so much.
And this is one of the things I have learned in my 30s, like in most of my 30s, I was like actively single. Like I was actively choosing to be single. And I really wasn't that lonely. Like life was really good and really full. And suddenly I decided I was going to start dating, and suddenly I was lonely. I was like, oh, I want to find a partner. Like I'm feeling this like absence in my life. And one of the things I had done is I had dismissed the feelings of other single people because I was so happily single. And I forgot what it felt like to long for a partner.
Um,
And I think that has made me so much more compassionate. And also, since I've never really like actively dated people of the same sex. And so I'm getting to learn now is like, well, am I into this person or am I just lonely? Do I like this person or am I just tired? You know? And I'm getting to learn those things. And I think, well, I just have to date someone. Maybe I should just date that person over there. And I'm like, well, is that what this is about? Just like dating the person who's available? And so I'm getting to like learn all these things that I didn't get to learn when I was younger. And honestly, it's been really good and a really positive experience. One of the Since I was so public about I'm going to start dating, honestly, it was a little embarrassing when like 3 months had passed and I was still single. And I was like, oh, I have to date someone just like so I could say I dated someone. Like, no, no, this isn't what that's about. This was just about this is about me like having growth experiences, and this isn't about how other people perceive me.
oh, I love that. That's great. That's so valuable, Ben, that you've learned so much. It's given you so much empathy and so much insight. And yeah, what great reminders. In 2019, you made a blog post called Pride is the Opposite of Shame. This episode, like I said, is going to release in June. There's still some controversy about June being Pride Month. Can you share? I'm going to put a link to this blog post in the show notes, but I really appreciate this post so much. I loved your perspective. Can you just share a little bit about it with our listeners?
Yeah. So I know a lot of people feel uncomfortable with Pride Month and what that can look like and what that can mean. And people can be especially uncomfortable with the way it might seem like in your face. Like people are just like shoving this in your face.
Mhm.
And so I wrote this post called "Pride is the Opposite of Shame" because if you look at if you look in the dictionary and the thesaurus and look at the word pride, one of the antonyms of pride is shame. And so I hated myself so much for being gay. Like I hated my orientation so much. And I did everything I could to change. Like I prayed to change, I fasted to change, I kissed a girl to change, I went to therapy to change.
Mhm.
And none of that worked even a little bit. And I'd been taught very explicitly at church that same-sex attraction was a trial and a temptation and an affliction of this life that wouldn't exist in the next life. And so this led to years of my life when I would have rather been dead and straight instead of alive and gay. And so that's a lot of shame. That's a lot of like internalized
Yeah.
homophobia, a lot of self-hatred. And
Yeah.
so for me, what the word pride means is it's getting rid of all that shame, all that self-hatred, and saying, I'm going to live my best life the way that God sent me to earth. And so if the word pride makes you feel uncomfortable, words like some synonyms of pride are dignity and honor. And so for
Yeah.
me, if you don't like the word pride, gay dignity means I am a whole person who can live a life of value. Gay honor means that I am someone who can contribute to society the way I am.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm planning on writing a new post this month, for next month, about the word pride, and how pride
Ooh.
also is like a family of lions, and how what pride means to me is, we're meant to be family. and
Oh,
and
oh,
you
well,
know
I will surely link that
I,
too.
I I haven't written it yet. Hopefully it'll be
I
good.
know, but I'm sure
But
you will by the time.
I got this phrase from my friend Yese, who got a community together at
Yes,
BYU
he
Hawaii.
was on the podcast a few months ago. Yeah.
He's wonderful, and he he,
Yes.
he collected a group of, like, a bunch of stories of LGBTQ BYU Hawaii students, and then, like, put them in a binder, and he, like, wrote a letter at the beginning, and he said all of these people have fought like lions, to move forward in their lives, but even lions can't survive without their pride. And so
Ah,
I just feel that intensity, like we need one another. And I think one of the reasons, like, this podcast is important is because so many people feel alone if they're doubting or questioning. And if someone is doubting or questioning, like, that's not bad, that's not wrong. It's just part of their life.
yeah.
And no one should have to go through any experience alone, because we can't survive without our pride.
I have learned that doubt is is a catalyst for growth. Doubt is a refiner of our belief, and I think God intended it. I really do. I think it's all part of the big picture. It's not something to run from. It's part of the picture. And so with that, my last question I always ask is, what does it mean to you to live beyond the shadow of doubt?
Yeah. I think, when we say, like, a shadow of a doubt, like, a shadow means that there's something, like, in the way that's, like,
Yeah.
blocking out the light. And so for me, like, living beyond the shadow of a doubt is trusting that there is more to come, that that there are a lot of puzzle pieces in front of me, and I've put a lot of them together, and they're gonna keep getting put together, and the picture is gonna get more and more complete. And to just trust that, right now I've got enough, and I'll get more tomorrow. And that's what God taught the Israelites with manna. They weren't allowed to keep it till the next day. Like, they had to get it more of it every day. And I feel the same way. I just trust that I have enough for today, and tomorrow I'll have what I need, and the next day I'll have enough for what I need, and just trusting that more will come.
Wow, that is a brilliant analogy. I love that. It's the first time I've heard that one. That's great. Okay, really quick question so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. I'm looking for one or two word answers. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Tell us your favorite book.
Ooh, probably the Book of Mormon. I know that's so lame, but it's true.
Okay, I know the answer to this question. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I am the biggest extrovert. I am
Yes, you
so
are.
extroverted.
Yes, thus the needy and attention
Yes.
grabbing. Who is your favorite artist?
Oh, like painter?
You pick. You
Oh
pick.
gosh. I'm not a big art person, so I don't know, but
Can be music artist.
I love vintage travel posters. So whoever designs those.
Okay, that's fun. Are you a night owl or morning lark?
I'm a night owl through and through. My ideal bedtime is like 12:30 in the morning.
My most favorite answer is I had a guest answer. I'm both. Um, or I'm sorry, no, she said neither.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah. Okay, do you have a celebrity crush?
I mean, it comes and goes. Right now it's Jonathan Groff. He's in this
Okay.
play on Broadway called Merrily We Roll Along, but he's the voice. He's in Hamilton. He's the voice of Hans
Okay.
and Frozen. He's
Okay.
very
Fun.
handsome and talented.
Oh, how fun. Okay, do you do still carbonated water or are you a diet soda fan?
Oh, I actually do carbonated water. I like LaCroix. When I go to a restaurant, I like, if they have the
Huh?
option to get the soda water. I just like the carbonation.
Fun. And then finally, the furthest place you've traveled.
Ooh, I think the farthest I've traveled, I had a layover in Dubai on my way to Turkey. I think Turkey was probably the farthest I like actually was, but I was in Dubai for a few hours in the airport.
So you got to look out the window and see all the tall
I
buildings.
saw the
Wow.
Burj Khalifa from the plane. It was amazing.
That is amazing. Well, Ben, thank you so, so much. If folks wanted to connect with you or reach out to you for questions and whatnot, what would be the easiest way?
Yeah, the easiest way would be on Instagram or Facebook. I respond to Instagram messages and Facebook messages. That's the easiest way. The hardest part is just spelling Schilaty right. So if you can spell Ben Schilaty, I'm the only Ben Schilaty on the internet, so I'm really easy to find. I also have a webpage, benschilati.com, that you can submit a message through.
And I will leave, make sure you check out Ben's book, A Walk in My Shoes. And we will leave that in the show notes, as well as links to your podcast and to all the things. Your TEDx talk, all of it. It's all so, so good. Thank you. Thank you. This has been really fun. I appreciate your time so much.
Of course, it's an honor.
Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast is a proud member of the Dialogue Podcast Network, which is part of the Dialogue Journal, found at dialoguejournal.com. Founder Eugene England was a Mormon writer, teacher, and scholar who wrote, "My faith encourages my curiosity and awe. It thrusts me out into relationship with all creation and encourages me to enter into dialogue. My hope is that this podcast is an extension of that vision." Hopeful Spaces is a Dallas Hope Charities component of Hopeful Discussions, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz Financial Services USA. It's a free monthly parent, ally, or caregiver support group facilitated by Megan Skidmore Coaching. Email chc@dallashopecharities.org for more info. Visit meganskidmorecoaching.com to find this podcast and additional free resources, including the link for a complimentary coaching session. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram for more, or to send me a DM. Help the podcast grow. Please follow, review, and share with a friend.